Well, I'm Candy Whitworth here in Los Angeles, and right now on ABC News Live, we begin with our big story. Just over 60 days until the election, nominees Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are campaigning across this country, and they're focusing heavily on those battleground states that could swing the presidency to either side of the aisle. Harris right now in New Hampshire, coming off a long road trip in the Midwest and pivotal Sunbelt states, and Donald Trump spending recent weeks speaking to voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Arizona. All of this as we approach the first debate between the two candidates. It's just 6 days away. But Commander-in-Chief isn't the only one in office. That's, of course, not the only thing on the ballot for November. Right now, there are 34 Senate seats up for grabs, more than enough to overturn the Democrats' ultra-thin majority, all while members of Congress work to avert a government shutdown, with a deadline looming at the end of this month. For more on this, I am joined by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. It's a pleasure for all of us to have you here with us, Senator Schumer. Thank you for being here.
Congratulations to you and to ABC on this new venture. Good luck. Got to adapt to the changes of the world.
We appreciate that. And so, listen, we have a lot to discuss here, several issues. And first, I want to start with the breaking news that we're seeing out of Georgia today. We know that there's 4 dead, 2 students, 2 teachers were murdered, 9 injured. We've now learned that the suspect is a 14-year-old and will be tried as an adult. The sheriff called it pure evil just moments ago. What's your reaction?
Well, first, our hearts go out to those who have lost loved ones. We respect the first responders who always do a very good job and risk their lives. And look, we don't know the details here, but we do know that guns are too prevalent in our society and too available to people who shouldn't have them. Last year we did in the Congress, under our leadership, did for the first time limit the ability of younger people to get assault weapons. But there has to be a lot more done about guns. Now, that doesn't reflect on what happened in the shootings. I don't know the details, but I do know that too many people who shouldn't have guns have them.
If we can now, let's turn to the Israel-Hamas conflict. We know the State Department has been taking part in negotiations for a ceasefire deal. They say they will require flexibility on both sides. The U.S. has also said that this is the final offer, and it's a take it or leave it. And I know that you have called for new elections in Israel as in last March, right?
Yes.
But do you think that there is any way, Senator, that a deal can be done with Netanyahu in charge, or in your opinion, is it time for him to step down?
Well, first, we saw the pure evil that Hamas is by shooting these hostages. And they are shot dead because of Hamas. Let's not forget that. Look, let us hope, for the sake of the hostages and others, that both sides can come together with a negotiated deal. I know President Biden is importuning both sides to do it, and you can't give up hope. A negotiated deal would be a negotiated temporary ceasefire would be the best way to get the hostages released.
For clarity, though, do you think this can be done with Netanyahu? Well,
I think that we have to have both sides come together. And again, I've had my problems with Netanyahu, but let's not forget Hamas what they did was pure evil, shooting those hostages.
Certainly the responsibility lies there. Let's talk about Speaker Johnson, expected to propose a stopgap funding measure in the House to fund the government until spring, but attaching to it new rules requiring proof of citizenship when voting. And we know a handful of House Democrats say they will support this. If this voter ID legislation is attached to the government funding bill, would you put it up for a vote, or are we looking at a government shutdown here?
Look, Speaker Johnson should learn from the past. You can only keep the government funding in a bipartisan way. You can't have a group of Republicans, particularly led by right-wing, hard-nosed Republicans who don't even represent the whole Republican Party, put together a proposal with all kinds of poison pill legislation in it, and then say, this is what has to pass. That bill may not even pass the House. I think there are some Republicans who might vote against it. It certainly has no chance in the Senate, or no chance being signed by the president. So, Speaker Johnson, look at what's going on. You can't pass a bill unless we come together on a bipartisan agreement. That's what has happened each time in the past. You've tried to appease your right wing. It's failed, and you've had to come to us and negotiate. We're ready to negotiate a bipartisan deal.
Some Democrats do support it, though, and what about it would not pass through the Senate?
There's so much in their bill. They have poison pills on abortion. They have poison pills on so many issues. They slash spending for programs that the vast majority of Americans support. That bill is a non-starter. And, you know, the idea of this thing about voting, that is law now. If you're not a citizen, you can't vote, period. You can't do that at the federal level.
Well, so then why not support voter ID?
Well, the bill, as I said, is filled with poison pills of all kinds that Democrats would not suggest. And the reason it is because, again, Speaker Johnson, when he starts out, he's afraid of his right wing, he's afraid of his majority, so he says, what can I put in the bill that you will like? It never passes, and then they have to come negotiate with us. That's what will happen.
And Senator Schumer, I do want to give you an opportunity to respond here, because earlier House Majority Whip Tom Emmer was on our air today, and frankly, he blamed you for Congress's inability to pass a budget. He said the House has passed 71% of government funding, adding the Senate has yet to bring a bill to the floor. Give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, he knows well that his bill is a partisan bill, that you have a Democratic Senate, a Republican House, you have to come together. In fact, we in the Senate, with Patty Murray, a Democrat, and Susan Collins, a Republican, have come together with bipartisan ways of funding the government. The Republicans don't. They just try to do it their own way, and they fail each time. And then they have to come to us and say, let's come to an agreement. So I would say to Mr. Emmer, he's a smart guy, tell Speaker Johnson to look at the past, look what's happened every single time. You cannot pass, neither party can pass a partisan bill. Let's come together and negotiate, stop playing the games, and get this done. Don't just throw a bone to the right wing every time because, you know, the jeopardy of the speakership is in some degree of jeopardy.
Let's talk a little bit about some of these battleground states and the efforts to hold on to the Senate if we can. Our ABC News polling shows that Americans trust Donald Trump on issues like inflation and the economy more than Kamala Harris. Are you at all worried that Americans trusting Republicans on those issues could perhaps affect some down-ballot Democrats in those crucial Senate races?
No, our down-ballot Democrats are doing extremely well. They are focusing on delivering for their states. The great legislation that we passed in the 2022 year, building roads and bridges and infrastructure, bringing jobs back to America in chip fab and in other science, passing the IRA, which for the first time reduced drug prices and reduced costs of energy while cleaning up the environment. Our senators who are running are showing the voters that they're delivering for their states in specific issues like those that I mentioned. And the Republican candidates are just talking, you know, they're pointing fingers, calling names. They're not talking about getting anything done. And that's why, surprisingly, in just about all of the battleground states, we are either ahead or in neck-and-neck contention. We're doing much better than people ever thought we would.
What about Jon Tester, though, in Montana? He's in a tight race, and he has this new ad that he put out, and he says he's touting that he worked with President Trump and saying that he stood up to President Biden. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, Jon Tester represents Montana above all, and he will pursue Montana's interests regardless of party, and that's why he's going to win the election.
Let's talk a little bit about the senators that was this bipartisan border bill that was crafted. We know it was ultimately sunk by House Republicans at the urging of Donald Trump. But today, more than 80 organizations have written a letter to President Biden and Vice President Harris opposing that border act. If Democrats win the House, the Senate, and presidency, would you continue to support this bipartisan legislation, or would you urge Democrats to go back to the drawing board on it?
Look, the bottom line is, let's look at what happened here. Democrats put together a really tough bill that was supported by Republicans initially. John Thune, John Cornyn had said this is a good bill. The Wall Street Journal editorial page, one of the most conservative editorial pages in the country, said it's a good bill because it really dealt with the crisis at the border. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump says, I don't want to pass the bill because I want chaos. I want chaos for the election. And so that's why on the border issue now, Democrats are on offense and Republicans are on defense. To follow Donald Trump because he wants chaos to win an election, that's not what the American people want. They want a strong border bill. And we put it before the Republicans in the Senate twice. being afraid of Donald Trump, even though they initially said many good things about it, and it was a bipartisan bill to begin with, shows you where they're at. So we're going to remain very strong on border and try to deal with the border issues in a way that really solves that problem and deals with the immigration problems as well.
But just quickly, if I can, because I have another question I want to ask you, would you support the bill as is, and would you have the president sign it if it is President Harris?
We've had the bill twice on the floor already, and Republicans have voted no. That spoke for itself. I don't think that'll serve them well in November.
All right, I have to ask you one more question. I know they're trying to wrap me, but I'm just curious quickly if we can, Senator, and thank you for your time. Kamala Harris said in an interview she did with Dana Bash that she would consider putting a Republican in her cabinet. Do you support that? And if so, which Republican do you think she should choose?
You know, Kamala Harris will try to work in a bipartisan way whenever she can. That's what we've done in the Senate as well. A lot of the bills I mentioned were passed with bipartisan votes. We always try to be bipartisan first. And I have no problem with her putting a Republican in the cabinet.
Senator Schumer, I am so grateful for you taking the time to be here with us today and to talk about such a variety of issues.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Proud to be here on your first day, and I hope the show's a big success.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And coming up next here, we take this big story in our interview to my panel for their reaction to my conversation with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So I just spoke with Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, who weighed in on Israel's war in Gaza, the U.S. presidential campaign. He told me that partisan government funding bill has no chance in the Senate. Now, for more on this, I want to bring our big story to our panel. And joining us today is our ABC News contributor and SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, ABC News political contributor and senior editor at The Dispatch Sarah Isker, Democratic strategist Megan Hayes, and former Republican Congressman from New York John Katko. I'm glad to have you all here with us. So, look, Mike, let's jump in onto a couple of things here. I asked him a wide range of questions, but one thing I'm really curious about really is these tight Senate races, because we know that Senator Schumer has leaned in heavily on keeping control of the Senate, trying to pick up seats, maybe even taking over the House. He even spoke about it at the Democratic National Convention, yet he sort of waved off the fact that John Tester in Montana there is leaning into all the deals he made with Donald Trump and sort of pushing back on the Biden-Harris administration.
One, I thought that was a really great question, including your follow-up questions. Your follow-up questions are really good, in particular around the stop funding gap measure for that one. But around that one, though, I will say, Kana, when I look at Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, I do believe they are very tactical at knowing their members. They always give their members leeway to be able to do what's best for them to win the state. Both of them are incredible tacticians that always keeps their eye on the prize and maintaining their side of the House or the Senate. And so I think what you're doing is he's signaling to Tester that he is giving him permission publicly to lean in to whatever he needs to do in order to best represent his state, in order for them to be able to maintain the majority in the Senate. He had to do the same thing in working with Senator Manchin, if you recall, right, who was not necessarily the most progressive Democrat, some would say extremely independent, even not conservatively leaning. And so Senator Chuck Schumer has always been a really great tactician with that. Him and also, too, Senator Mitch McConnell, those two are very stalwarts in their positions of being tacticians within the Senate.
Yeah, and that West Virginia seat, right, is very interesting, as it's in all likelihood will flip red. Sarah Isker, to you. In terms of what the cabinet could look like in a Harris-Walz administration, I know that this is of interest to you as well, and I have to be honest, I actually hear from some voters that are really curious about what the nominees' cabinets would look like, and it's something that I haven't really heard before, this amount of interest in elections. Do you think that part of that is because there's serious questions right now about who's actually making decisions in this government?
I think there's real questions about who a President Harris would be, what policy positions she would actually take. And so when she says she would put a Republican in the cabinet, the Republican Party's pretty fractured right now. What type of Republican is she talking about putting in the cabinet? And does she mean like Secretary of Defense, or does she mean the Small Business Administration? You know, it's been very hard to pin her down on her policies. This is another area that's been hard to pin down. You know, she gets away with saying she's going to be bipartisan, but we don't really know what that means.
No, and in fact, she still gets a lot of criticism, as she has throughout her vice president, throughout her role as vice president, for sort of bending the knee to the far left of her party. And so it's interesting to see that she would want to try to reach across the aisle there. Also, Megan Hayes, it's interesting to me as well in terms of this bipartisan border bill. He wouldn't really answer if, yes, they would take it as is and try to push it through if they have control. But it's also fascinating, Megan, that we're hearing now from these 80 organizations that are pushing back, saying don't pass this through. And I think there's some questions now about if Harris is in the White House, would she actually take a tough stance on immigration, or would she risk losing voters in the election if she continues to do so, at least in words?
No, I think she is taking a tough stance as I think that she wants there's like two things that are at play, right? She wants tougher border security, but she also wants a path for people to become citizens, a legal path for people to become citizens. So I think, it's not, both things can be true at the same time. But I also think that the border bill that was in front of Congress was a bipartisan bill that was negotiated by very conservative Republicans and very liberal Democrats. And so that was what they thought was agreeable. And that's what being in Congress is supposed to be about, is working together to get something done. So I'm not sure if they would take it up as exactly as there wouldn't be any changes. But I do know that, just like we were just talking about, Senator Schumer is extremely tactical, and they know that they have to get something through Congress and through in a positive way. And the only way they are going to do something like that with immigration is if it is bipartisan and if both sides are going to come together and agree.
Right, and that one got, right down to the goal line and then really fell apart. And John, I'm curious as to your thoughts here on this looming government shutdown, because there is some things added to this bill that sounds like Speaker Johnson is going to take to the House floor, including this legislation for voter ID. And Senator Schumer almost sort of brushed that off and tried to point to some other issues in this bill that they didn't like. But we know that that is a point of contention for Democrats as well.
Yeah, it is. And the voter ID thing, there's certain elements of both parties you have to satisfy to try and get something to the floor. And they're trying to do that. But I was always wondered about the voter ID issue. And I understand the issues from the South and, the old concerns about if you have to show an ID to buy a 6-pack of beer, what's the big deal about showing an ID to vote? I just don't, I never understood that. But I may be a minority in that regard. But regardless, he's saying what he's supposed to say for his side and his party. The other side will say what they're supposed to say. And probably at the last second, something will get done because no one wants the lights to go out on the eve of a critical election like this. That's my guess.
Right.
And by the way, Kate, I will volunteer for this. I will be that Republican that goes under a cabinet if she allows me to free hand to secure the border. Sign me up.
How about that? John's running. And just of note, I recently got a library card. I had to show multiple forms of ID and proof of address to get my library card. So, yeah. All right, Mike, Sarah, Megan, and John, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.